Tekken 8 is bleeding longtime fans, and I'm not surprised. You don't have to worry, this isn't a rant. There's enough of that going around on Twitter and YouTube these days. What I'm actually offering are 3 game-changing mechanics that could save the game. After the disaster that was Season 2, which leaned more heavily into offense, despite the devs saying that more defensive patches were coming, I came to realize certain things about what I saw was happening, and why it seemed like no matter what the players told them, they didn't seem to listen or get it. And it's important to understand this to understand why I'm suggesting the mechanics that I'm suggesting, and why they will work to everyone's benefit, even the devs. The developers have a design philosophy that the entire game of Tekken was built on top of, and I believe that there are certain aspects of this philosophy that, no matter what, they will not compromise on it. They'll even go down with the ship if they have to. Real quick, I'm going to go over those mechanics to illustrate my point. And the first one is heat. They will never remove or do any substantial nerfs with heat. Heat was a mechanic specifically put in the game to make gameplay more aggressive and give less skilled players more of a chance to beat higher skilled ones. They've said this themselves. That's why almost no matter who you play, they have to defend like their lives depend on it most of the time, and guess 50/50s. The reason why heat is such a poor mechanic is because not only are you forced to defend, but the attacks also do chip damage. So you're being punished for doing exactly what you have to do in order to survive. I actually don't have a problem with heat itself, but I don't think it should force the opponent to defend while punishing them for doing exactly that. Next up, high combo damage and strings. The devs want to see impressive combo strings, especially in tournaments, which is why the tornado mechanic was added, as well as resetting a combo with a heat pop. While this is entertaining to watch in tournaments, it also allows new players to beat more skilled players if they just so happen to get a lucky launch. Next up, force 50/50s. I know, Tekken has always had them, but the amount of them in this game is staggering, almost criminal. Force 50/50s put your opponent in a position where more often than not, they can't escape with pure skill. They have to essentially play rock, paper, scissors with you, and if you guess wrong, you get hit. It's a perfect mechanic for promoting aggression, which is what they want, and for less skilled players to eke out a win over more skilled opponents, which they've also won. The last mechanic I'm going to talk about is Rage Arts. It's been around since Tekken 7 and it ain't going anywhere. It's the comeback mechanic in Tekken now. And also a way for less skilled players to pull one over more skilled players. Noticing the pattern yet? The devs really want to make tournaments entertaining. And I get why that might be stupid to a lot of people who say that tournaments were already entertaining. And that's true, but upsets are also entertaining. And even though making things like crazy combo strings easier may diminish their hype value to a player, the biggest job of a tournament is to get people who have never played the game before to try it. So while we may look at a pro doing a combo string and say it isn't that impressive because all combos are easy now, it looks impressive to someone who has never played before, and that is worth much more to Bandai Namco. Why do you think Rage Arts are so cinematic now? It's not for players who play every day, it's for people watching tournaments who see it for the first time and think it looks awesome. And when I say things like how the mechanics are for less skilled players, I say it not to punch down on them. I'll probably never make it to GOD rank. As you can plainly see from my gameplay, I am not a high tier player. And I'm even worse than I was before because I recently switched to arcade stick. But I've been watching Tekken tournaments for over a decade, and I've been playing Tekken since Tekken 1. So the point I'm trying to make is that I'm not approaching this as a high tier player or some god tier pro. I'm approaching this as a frequent player of the game, an astute observer of the game, an aspiring game designer, and a business owner. These mechanics were put in the game to give less skilled players a helping hand by lessening the skill gap and to make tournaments more entertaining. And it is because of this philosophy that these mechanics cannot be changed or overly nerfed, because it will hand too much power back to the skilled players, which we already established that they don't want, and the game will lose a lot of its offensive focus, which they believe make tournaments less entertaining, which they also don't want. This is the dilemma the devs are in. So keeping all this in mind, what changes can they really make to put just enough defense in the game, yet keep all the essential mechanics and not ruin the overall philosophy they were going for? Even with all help and feedback from the players, the vast majority of that feedback is saying to nerf or get rid of things that they absolutely cannot do. And I'm not saying this out of sympathy for the developers. I'm just telling it like it is. And I'm trying to get you to understand their point of view so that way everyone can be on the same page for once. So, instead of fighting the game's design, I've built my suggestions around it. Here are 3 mechanics that could bring balance back, without undoing what makes Tekken 8 what it is. A quick side note, in order to make these mechanics work, I would separate the heat meter into 2 bars. When you go into heat, you will consume all the remaining heat as normal, but these mechanics would use the bars that the heat would be separated into. Mechanic number 1, push guard. I think it's about time that Tekken implement a push guard system. For those who don't know, take a look at this clip from Marvel vs. Capcom 2, one of my favorite fighting games. You can see when the attacker is attacking the blocking player can input 1+2 and push the attacker backwards and essentially reset the spacing. This mechanic needs to be introduced into Tekken. How I would implement it is that a push guard will consume 1 bar of your heat meter, but it can help a defender relieve themselves of the pressure of an attacker and push them backward into neutral. If the attacker will be pushed into a wall, the advancing guard will then push your character backward instead, so as not to be able to be abused at the wall. Players in Heat will not have access to this mechanic at all. Mechanic number 2, combo breakers. This may seem a little controversial, but I think Tekken needs a combo breaker mechanic. Since they do not want to shorten the overall length of combos or its damage, then this is a solution to the problem without taking that away. I like the way Mortal Kombat implements this, especially Mortal Kombat 9. Basically, when an attacker has the opponent in the juggle combo, the opponent may press an input and recover from the juggle in midair, and knock the attacker backward into neutral. This mechanic would also work if wall splatted, if I had my way. This mechanic, like the last one, would not send the attacker into the wall, and would instead knock the one being juggled backward. And of course, players in Heat will not have access to this mechanic at all. And last but not least, mechanic number 3, no chip damage when in Heat. This mechanic is simple. Remove chip damage from when the receiving player is in Heat. I feel as though if a player is in Heat, they should receive no chip damage. This would be an easy change to make and would not throw off gameplay balance at all, and it helps both players equally. Not much needs to be said about this one, it's pretty self-explanatory, and it creates an environment where if both players are in Heat, then the field is level, allowing for more strategies on how to deal with players in Heat. These 3 mechanics alone give players much more defensive options and counterplay, despite the oppressive offense dished out by opponents. The reason why I have it so that way push guard and combo breakers cannot be activated while in Heat at all is to address the overwhelming advantage a player in Heat has over their opponent. It introduces a price to using Heat, a drawback, which, more than anything, is what is needed to implement a balance. At first, I thought that when in Heat, a player should take 10 to 15% more damage, but the developers would never go for that because they don't want anything to discourage players from using Heat. So I think this is the best solution to introduce some sort of drawback using Heat, even a small one. Losing access to these mechanics will make players think twice about when and where they want to use Heat, instead of outright discouraging them to, because that will go against the dev's design philosophy, which we established in the beginning of the video, will shut down the entire possibility. And well, that's it. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for watching my first ever YouTube video. Honestly, I wasn't even going to make this, but if it weren't for all the content creators I look up to, BDX, Moonsault, Mike Hollow, and many others, I probably wouldn't have, especially since Tekken fans can get pretty noisy sometimes. But this is a perspective that I've never heard being shared before, and I thought adding my own voice to it maybe could help the conversation. I love Tekken and wanted to survive and be great more than anything, but the developers have to do something big to balance the game. And individual balance adjustments of characters will not be enough on their own. At least I don't believe they will. This is a solution I've come up with while trying my absolute best to keep what the devs actually want for the game in mind. I know some of these mechanics I suggested sound game changing, and they are, but the devs already rewrote the rules of what Tekken is and changed the game by bringing in Heat in the first place. So why not add new mechanics that could balance it out in a way that they might actually listen? But more than that, I want to start a nuanced discussion about working within the mechanics that they absolutely will not bend on and offering creative solutions to the problems we have, because those are the solutions that I feel as though they will ultimately pay attention to. But what do you guys think about this? Do you think that my mechanics are a good idea or a bad idea, or can you think of better mechanics to add? Some that maybe are a little more subtle than mine, or some more bombastic than mine? Let me know. I'm really interested in like hearing and reading that stuff. And don't be shy. No idea is a bad idea. Please be respectful. I know people are gonna have some pretty diverse opinions, and that's what we encourage here. But yeah, this was fun. I'm thinking I would like to post more videos in the future, so if you want to keep an eye out for that, subscribe and give the video a like. Oh, and if you have suggestions about things that I can talk about for other videos, let me know that too. Alright, see you guys in the next one.